And we're back talking about protesting in Canada and whether or not police are letting things go too far. Tristan, I want to come to you. Josh just explained a little bit about the law, what people are allowed to do and not do. Um, do you think, like, have we seen a change in this country over the past several years in terms of how uh, police are responding to these issues? Have you noticed that?
We've definitely never had an era in which there has been less response, less proactive um, behavior from the police, and I think there's a few reasons for that. I mean, you need only look to what was it, the G20? This was just a few years ago, G20 protests in Toronto. And this was an example of there's a bunch of illegal protests. They're burning stuff, they're smashing windows. So the police do what police are supposed to do in those types of incidents, round everybody up and arrest them. And that yielded years and years and years of front page stories, inquiries about police overreach in the G20 protests. So I could understand being a member of the Toronto Police in the leadership saying, "Oh, any type of protest, the better thing for us to do is to wait until it's absolutely way too much of a problem that we're forced to do things." I mean, obviously, we would prefer in almost any situation to just kind of stand at the sidelines and hope this blows over in its own. So, for a variety of reasons, one of those reasons being that you just do not have the political will. I mean, a police officer in this day and age, I think, does not feel that they have politicians sort of backing them. I mean, if one thing goes
Hmm.
wrong and that's a mean tweet and that's a video going around, they'll be sold out by
Hmm.
the political class at the first instance. So yeah, there's definitely a political instance. As Mr. Dehaas referenced, there's any number of laws which make it illegal to blockade roads, something we see almost daily in every Canadian city on a regular basis without consequence. And it's not a
Hmm.
lack of laws. It's police are hesitant and afraid to enforce the law. And that may actually, we can just yell at the police for being lazy and not doing their job, but that
Hmm.
didn't come out of a vacuum. There's a variety of reasons why they're not cracking down on protests like they used to.
So, how often does this get politicized where it's politicians calling the shots versus police having particular protocol that they follow and enforcing the law regardless of the topic of the protest?
Oh, it seems like almost every protest. So, I mean, basically, the strategy is now, and again, this is left wing, right wing protest, freedom convoy, an anti-Israel protest, no matter who it is. The strategy seems to be they
Hmm.
start blockading stuff and just pushing the envelope, and the police kind of stand at the sidelines, and they'll arrest someone if they start whipping out a knife or breaking a window, but they just stand there and
Right.
hope this will go away on its own until there is top-down political pressure. We saw that in freedom convoy. We saw that with anti-Israel protest in Toronto. You had to wait until there was protesters actually blockading an overpass into a Jewish neighborhood, and
Hmm.
basically textbook definition of intimidation, until you had enough politicians saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, police, you have to start actually arresting people and enforcing the law." So I would say, yeah, and there's also a resource issue. I mean, I struggle to think of a police force in Canada who hasn't seen resource issues, who isn't chasing rising crime everywhere else. So yeah, the strategy now seems to be okay when some huge disruptive protest happens. We'll hope they all just have to go back to school, or it starts raining, or something. It goes away on its own, so we don't actually have to crack any heads. And then when that doesn't happen, you have to have political pressure urging them to do things. So it's almost like it's 200 years ago. We don't even have a police force, and you just wait until something
Yeah.
becomes so disruptive. You have to deputize a bunch of people with axe handles or something.
Yeah. No, it definitely seems like the police are taking much more of a hands-off approach. Uh, Josh, I want to ask you the same question. How much have you seen that this is getting sort of politicized, where politicians are maybe calling the shots and deciding what the response will be?
Yeah, unfortunately, it has become politicized. I mean, from a rule of law perspective, what you want is for the police to enforce the law the same way against every type of protester. But unfortunately, like Tristan says, they often wait until they get sort of political signals from on high before they enforce the law. So you see this sort of underreaction at first, followed by overreaction once the politicos get involved. And that's sort of the worst way to approach it. You know, here in Toronto, for example, I agree police were being extremely hands-off with the anti-Israel protesters who were doing things like blockading. They weren't arresting them. And then a day after or so, a meeting between Toronto's police chief and Justin Trudeau, they had a big photo op. Suddenly, they've completely banned protests on those overpasses, which I think goes too far.
We got to take a commercial break. We'll be back with more in a minute.